Queer spaces represent a safe and supportive place where queer people can be supported by other queer people. It's kind of bizarre in the queer community to have so many queer people championed to like call out homophobia or transphobia and things like that. But when it comes to ableism, that's never talked about, and that's never something that's worked through. Queer disabled people are just never thought about and never talked about and never involved. It's not only frustrating, but it's extremely upsetting. It quite literally feels like you're watching everyone else in the community through a wall of glass that you aren't able to enter. Hi, my name is Finn. I'm 20 years old. I use they, them pronouns. I identify as queer, neurodivergent, and disabled. I have MECFS, POTS, fibromyalgia, chronic joint pain, IBS, chronic pelvic pain, chronic migraines. Those are most of my physical ones. I have to take some supplements, electrolytes, and sometimes some salt if I need it. I also need to have a lot of water in the morning. So usually around the house, I just use my cane and my knee braces. A lot of the time I also use stools in the house because I can't stand up for very long, but if I'm going out of the house, I alternate between using a walker or a wheelchair. I think something I kind of really struggle with is like labeling my gender and my sexuality. But I think this is probably because I'm autistic as well. I find it quite hard to box myself into a specific label, so I just label myself as queer, I guess, but if I was to really dig into it, my gender identity would be trans non-binary or gender diverse, and my sexuality would just be queer. It's taken me a very long time to work through letting go of people's expectations of what I should be and actually just embracing who I am. I'm definitely someone whose appearance changes a lot. Part of being queer for me and being trans is that with like hormones and like gender affirming surgeries and makeup and clothing and hairstyle and tattoos and piercings, I see all those sorts of things as ways to explore and alter my body in a way that I feel is more comfortable for me. For me, a part of being like neurodivergent, I just don't really adhere to social norms at all. And so I think with like my queerness, a lot of the time it does kind of tend to get me into trouble. And I think especially like being disabled, I just don't look like anyone you would see normally. I don't tend to really think about that because I just feel happy and comfortable being myself. I think I'm a very political person. I think that's always been a really big passion of mine, and I think especially with being disabled and queer, a lot of my politics revolve around accessibility in our society, or rather, the lack of it. So Battle Jacket is a jacket that lots of punks wear to like show their interests and political views. My identities and also my politics, I think, are tied in very closely with who I am, and so like I like to put that into my appearance. It makes me feel confident not only in myself and who I am, but also in representing the identities and communities I belong to. A lot of the time, societal views around disabled people are that your disabled body isn't something that you should be proud of or be flaunting, and that it's something that should be hidden away from people and not represented in the mainstream, but that ideology is really wrong. I want people to know that I'm proud to be disabled and that I'm happy. I'm really hoping that I get to wear this to K Road, since it's the most important queer space in the city. I really want to access queer spaces just so that I can be around people like me and people in my community. I think it's really important that queer spaces become more accessible and friendly to queer disabled people, because not only are we a part of the community, but everyone else in the community will become a part of us as well. A lot of events and spaces and buildings aren't actually accessible to disabled people. Disabled people can't even get through the door in the first place, so they're never seen in these spaces. It's just the problem of we're not able to access spaces, so we're never seen and so we're never thought about. This is a very high walker, and it has all-terrain wheels, which is really exciting for me because my old walker had really worn down wheels, and the seat is like so much more comfortable and the brakes are really good. It's just a really good walker. Unfortunately, a lot of like walking aids, they're made for like older people, and so there's not really any walkers or rollators that have like a nice color for like young people or anyone who doesn't want like a boring red or blue. Right now, I'm kind of obsessing over the colors orange and lavender. I think in terms of my queer expression, customizing my mobility aids really represents how those intersections of being queer and disabled meet together for me. Today we're going to go out to Tāmaki Road. So I'm going to be wearing a battle jacket that I just finished with the big patch on the back. And I'm also going to be taking out my new walking frame that I painted lavender, going out into queer spaces and forcing myself as a disabled person into inaccessible spaces. I just like seeing queer non-disabled people be shocked at seeing a queer disabled person force themselves into a space that they are not usually seen in. Tāmaki Road is a really awesome queer space, but I think in terms of accessibility, it's really not up to par. A lot of the stores aren't accessible. You can't a lot of the time fit a wheelchair through aisles of racks or shelves, or the entrance isn't accessible and you can't even get in the door. There's also no disabled toilet on the entire street. And that's just bizarre because there are non-disabled toilets there. It's definitely interesting how almost overtly disabled people are left out on K Road. It would also be good if cracks in pavement were fixed because that makes it really hard to navigate if you're in a wheelchair. Whether or not you want to be visible when you're disabled, you're visible anyways. You don't really have a choice. With being queer, you can like dress yourself down to pass as straight or pass as cis for safety if you need to. When you're disabled, you don't have that kind of privilege. You're overtly disabled and people will take notice of that all the time. I definitely like to challenge people's assumptions of me and assumptions of disabled people, and so I really enjoy being very overt in my disabledness. One of the best ways to amplify queer disabled voices in our community is to call out institutional and physical inaccessibility when you see it in queer spaces. Because if only disabled people are doing it, nothing's going to change. There need to be non-disabled allies who are also calling out ableism in our community.